All right, and right now, we're gonna pop these off, but that's true. Make sure somebody grabs the gloves. Right now it's not a real big deal, you're on the outside, but when we get inside, this cannot be powered down. And that's why we brought the insulated tools. But we will use gloves in here.
Be a dealer quick option.
Definitely. So just for clarification, the real battery's down here. This battery is live, but not connected to the car. So we're more just giving you a quick summary as to when you would have to use some insulated tools and stuff. Remember, even with the service plug out, the battery inside is still live at the bus bars. Okay. Okay, and fun note, have you guys ever seen this right here?
Oh, yeah, the little safety plug.
Do you know why it looks the way it looks?
It's bright orange, so you can know what it is.
Ah, you do get to learn a little bonus today. Can I get a volunteer to pull the service plug? Who wants to do it? Go ahead. Grab that service plug out of that. I think we might have to pop this panel up for a second. Actually, because Mitchell's got the glove, Mitchell, just go ahead and grab us that service plug right there. Out, fold, and pull. Good. Now, the reason I did this was because this service plug is actually also a tool. Very few people know that. This little peg actually goes here, like this. They engage like that, and then you can actually turn it and pop this off. So when somebody breaks this, it's because they have no idea how to get it out. They do it like this so you can't take this cover out without the service plug out, because the service plug's the tool. That way you're always very safe. Okay, so Mitchell's got all the hardware out of here. We got the clip out of there. So you think we're ready to pull that cover, but you guys all need to understand, this battery is bars like on top, you're gonna make some flame, okay? So just pull the cover nice and straight up. We'll just make sure they're all released. It might be a little stuck in the back. Okay. Straight up. Now I want to, good, take a couple steps back. Notice with a lot of the hard stuff, if you know what you got, you know you have it powered down and you measure it's powered down, no big deal. With the battery though, this is the one that's a little sketchy. That metal cover could touch these bus bars, and the thing is these bus bars are covered up by plastic, so that's why this isn't super scary, but under there's nuts and bolts on these, and then the backside as well. But they're all covered by plastic, so when you pull the cover, it's usually not a big deal. But if you had to do work on, I've heard some of you say, oh yeah, the people will change the cells. Well, in the dealer, we generally don't change the cells because you got to get all the way down to this level. And this is where it could get, I use the term loosely, dangerous. This is where there's a little bit of hazard involved. It's nothing, you follow the procedures and you're safe, but it's pretty hard to hurt yourself if you're not inside this battery, as long as you at least have the 12-volt battery disconnected and the service plug pulled, and you verify that SMRs are not stuck. The SMRs live right in here, okay? So you guys can see we have these. If you wanted to pull bus bars, that's when you'd have to actually pull these covers, and it's a little tough to do, and I could probably cheat a little bit with just one hand, but that's when we get some of those insulated tools. If you look, and you see this one's pretty corroded, so it's looking a little bit rough. But this is where it's a little bit scary, because all these are in series. So each of these cells adds and adds and adds, and it becomes actually fairly high voltage right here. Okay, so just for it, it's all right, we'll let it get pushed in just so I can make sure I push it. Okay, so I just want to make sure you guys know, in here is a totally different game with PPE stuff. Make sense? Okay, we're good with the battery. Now we're going to focus on the transaxle because that's our real goal. P.S. Now you guys know where you have the insulated tools. If you had to change a cell, you got to undo the bus bar. And if you drop like a wrench in there and short it, big problem. That's why.
That's fine.
Yes, very nice.
Like Lord.
Okay, let me just push it back so I got something to push up against. Yes.
Little center bit.
Yes, and twist. Okay, good. You're good to put the nuts and bolts and stuff. And then we're on a transaxle.
That one's not live, right?
Correct. So like once the transaxle's out, like this one's out, getting it out is hybrid work. But like you'll see when we get to this transaxle over here, it's not even really, you don't need any PPE or anything. All right, so here's our transaxle. And mainly the purpose of this is going to be so you can see just how simple it is. You've got wires for MG2, wires for MG1. We got a cover. We're just going to do a quick basic disassembly so you guys can see the motor generators. You'll also see the speed sensors, which are really called resolvers. and just some of the inner workings. It's still got a differential. It's still got a range switch and whatnot for park. Cool. I believe, from memory, I believe that's the resolver harness. So yeah, let's check it out. All right, so here it is apart. First thing we want to say is when we split this back cover off, you guys can see, you notice this piece right here? This is a sensor. It locates the position of the moving parts of MG1, which I'm going to tip this up a bit, but not too far. Roberto, you strong? Come over here and help me out. Help me tip this up without sliding it too much. Okay. We just want to go about that far. So here's your MG1, but it needs to know where the location of the rotor for MG1 is. So this we call the resolver. This is the position and speed sensor. It knows how fast it's going. It knows where it's going. It knows all those details. So if you were to have a resolver code, you're really looking at something with this. It's got harness. The harness goes to a connector. The connector passes through the case, and you'll see your 6 terminals right there. A lot of times the resolver is like 2 speed sensors in one. Okay, it's very precise. This resolver used to be available. It's no longer available. If you have a problem with a resolver, it's a Transaxle. You can't do the resolver anymore. That you will see on TechStream, on GTS Plus, a resolver like relearn. If you were to change a resolver, you could do the relearn, but now if you change the Transaxle, you do a resolver relearn. Okay, so that's what's kind of on the back side. Checking out that MG1, the MG1 cables and stuff are here. Now let's pause right there. Does anybody know what MG1 does? Well, look at this. Colin, this is your cue. You see MG2. This is MG1. MG2 is a lot bigger. MG1 right here, MG1's main job is 1, start the engine. So you notice on a Prius, you turn the key and there's no there's no starter. It just goes, it goes. So MG1 can get 3-phase AC from the inverter and then it will spin. And MG1, you can see, can be coupled to the ICE, the engine. So if we can turn MG1 while it's coupled, I can turn the ICE. MG1 can crank a hybrid engine at 1200 RPMs. At 1200 RPMs, it's cranking. It actually sounds like idle. Okay, so like if you ever have a Prius that comes in and you go to start it and it sounds like it runs for like 20 to 30 seconds and then stalls, it's probably not starting and stalling. It's probably cranking at 1200 RPMs and then no longer cranking because it doesn't want to kill the high voltage battery, okay? Then it'll set a code for startability malfunction. Just FYI, it's very different diagnosis. Okay, that's the main part of MG1 functioning as a motor, right? So motor, starter, that's what it is. Now MG1 is MG, so who thinks they know what the G does in MG1?
Generator.
But generates like for what?
Electricity.
True. So now you know that MG1 can be coupled to the ICE. So if we turn the ICE, that means we're burning gas, right? Vroom, 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 vroom. Well, we can generate through MG1 and that can charge the high voltage battery. So if you have a low high voltage battery state of charge, that's why the engine fires up, the ICE will run, it'll turn MG1 and MG1 will basically generate electricity to feed the high voltage battery. You understand? Kind of, sort of, a little bit. I'm gonna have you take over so I can make sure I'm pointing to the right things.
Oh, I can't hold the camera straight, bro.
Really?
No.
Ernie, you're up. Colin, you're gonna be my assistant still, even though you're wearing Honda stuff. Okay, so you guys good on MG1? Okay, that was MG1. Now I'm gonna explain MG2, then we're gonna locate MG2. MG2 does a different job. MG2 is much larger. When MG2 is motoring, it's actually an input to the transaxle to turn the wheels. Some people would call this, like on L3, a lot of times they'll call it the traction motor. You understand the traction motor? The traction motor means it's a wheel, it turns the wheels, it gets traction, it goes vroom. MG2 is coupled to a planetary gear set that sometimes they'll call a power split device. So you ever notice on a hybrid it's two modes of power, right? Gasoline, ICE, but also electric motor. Well, they use this planetary gear set so that the engine can be an input and also MG2 can be an input, and together, like Colin, you're going to become the engine. And what I want you to do is just start turning. You pick the direction, doesn't matter. As you turn that, watch, I'll make your job easy. You see how easy I make it? Okay, how's that thought? If I start backing him up as motor generator 2, I make his job really easy. That's why the Prius can have a pretty small, low power, Atkinson cycle, weak engine. It doesn't need to be that strong. It just needs to be some level of power input. MG2 will give it all the power it needs. Make sense? But go ahead and turn it again. The more you turn it, I can actually help you more, or I can help you less. I can do a couple of different things. As we're doing this though, we're using the planetary gear set. We can also basically change the gear ratio. So if you think about, you jump in a Prius, you put it in drive, and you punch it, you hear it go like, it doesn't do that, does it? It goes, and there's no, it's like, it's dull and lame, sorry. It's a CVT, did you know that? But it's not that type of CVT. It doesn't have shiv plates and a belt. It uses the electric motor to vary the planetary gear set gear ratio, and as you're getting up to speed and you need less torque and you need more speed, it'll constantly vary the transmission. CVT, electric CVT. So when you work on a Prius and it says it needs CVT fluid, that's true, but it's eCVT fluid, it's electronic CVT. That's why there's no gear shifts. They could program those in if you wanted anyway. You know, they could make it go, but they don't. They just make it go, and your just speed goes up, but your RPM stay the same. Okay, so that's how they do that. We're going to use MG1 to start it. Then we're going to use MG1 as needed to fill the big battery. Then we're going to pull from the big battery to power MG2 to make it go vroom, but we're also going to couple that with the engine if needed. But if you're just going around here, like low speed, we'll just tell the ICE to shut down and we'll just do MG2 only. Okay? But that was M for MG2. So what's the G for MG2? Generator. You agree? Like in what way? Took brakes from me, right? Don't let me down. That's regen braking. Okay, so because remember, MG2 really goes to the traction motor. This is the traction motor. It goes to the planetary gear set. When you're going down a hill and your vehicle is going faster than it needs to, we'll basically change the frequency on our three-phase AC and essentially run it more like a generator. You know, we can change the frequency so the point where the rotor is exceeding our frequency, and then the actual changing of the IGBT transistors will be pulling that back with a magnetic field. That'll generate. So when it's going down a hill and you feel the engine braking, it's not really engine braking, it's loading MG2 up as a generator, making electricity, send it back to the big battery. So you see why it's also MG2? All the regen braking comes out of MG2. If you're driving a Prius and you see the little B thing, you pull it over to B, you pull it back, you'll get a little engine braking. No, all you're doing is like manually telling the hybrid control ECU, hey, I want more regen braking going down the hill from Big Bear, like this. You'll get to the bottom and you have a pretty charged battery. If you really were to go crazy and you were to go like on the Grapevine and come down that whole thing for like 12 miles, MG2 will fill the big battery up so much, it'll actually run, it'll basically say like my state of charge is over 100%, that's dangerous. Turn the engine fuel off, but crank MG1 at 1200 RPMs or 2000. We've seen them come in at like 2000 RPMs, just they're driving and the engine's like my foot's off the gas, I'm scared. The engine's not running. The engine has no fuel, it's not sparking, it's not doing any of that. It's just having MG1 crank it at 2000 RPMs just to bleed off the state of charge, okay? So ideally, when you're coming down a big hill, you want kind of a dead battery so you have lots of room to recharge. And if you come with a full battery, you're going to lose a lot of your engine braking. It's going to wear your brake pads more, and by the time you get to the bottom, you may be bleeding off your battery just to get the state of charge down. It's kind of crazy. It's all normal. Okay, now from there, this is more of a simulator. You can see we use the planetary gear set. That can give us our gear reduction, but that can also give us our constant velocity, our CVT aspect. That also gives us the ability to do ICE and MG2 together. So we can do cool stuff. So as you guys get a little time, come over here and turn one way, turn it the other way. You can see the effect of what I do with MG2 and how it'll make the ICE actually loaded or unloaded or help it speed up or, you know, etc. Okay? So this is your Transaxle as a whole, and that's why you can, you know, lock it and break it. Now we're going to come back over to here. Ernie, follow me. So we looked at MG2 a bit, or we looked at MG1 quite a bit. There's your MG1 cranking and big battery charger. Then coming through the case, we got a few things right here. This is a big bearing, but it's also the ring gear right here. You can see this. This is the ring gear of a planetary gear set. You remember the planetary gear set? Okay, here is, look right here, the sun gear. If you can see, I'm going to carefully take that out. The sun gear here. Here's your sun. This would be what? Planetary carrier, exactly. So when you want to make a planetary gear set, there's your sun and your planets on your planetary carrier. And that would all drop into this ring gear right there. So we can make ourselves our planetary gear set right here. Don't be mean to me. All right, well, you get the idea. Okay, so I'm going to slide this back in. That's a way that we're able to couple. And then also what we have here is we have a part that's going to go to our differential. So we couple a couple things there. This is going to, there's another gear set down here, which you can't exactly see, but that's going to couple to this input shaft. And then additionally, we have a few things like, Ernie, can you see this right here? This is where you put it in park. So you do have like your typical shift mechanism. This is an old style Prius Transaxle. On the new ones, this is gone. This one is more like the push button one. On the push button one, what we do is we'll put an actuator in here and it'll have an electronic parking pawl. On this one, it's actually a parking pawl. It engages something, see? This parking pawl can come into and out of contact. A little tough to get it to move right now though. Okay, so this will actually engage this shell. On a new one, we don't need a shift cable, we don't need any of that stuff. You put it in park, it sends an electronic signal, and it punches a little motor or a solenoid out, and that's what engages the shell. That gives you your park. But you also notice pretty much all the hybrids. You ever notice when you put it in park, what do you hear? You hear the rear parking brake. But by law, they still have to have a parking pawl. You can't rely entirely on the brakes when you put it in park, so it has both. Kind of an interesting little detail, right? So you can imagine if one of these bearings goes bad, it's getting a Transaxle. Also right here, if you can see, I'm going to tilt it up a bit. I don't think we'll lose any parts. So there is an oil pump, a basic oil pump, and a little strainer right here, but it's a pretty basic pump. So if anybody says, oh yeah, I need to change my Transaxle filter, yeah, and this one is just this basic screen. It's like a little oil pump pickup. That's all. There's not really all that much parts in here. Now you stay there and I'll explain from this side. So we got the parts of our planetary gear set. In fact, you go on their side so you guys can all see. We got our parts of the gear set. You can see sometimes they'll call like a ring gear and a pinion or input and output. This is our differential. This is just like the differential on a Transaxle. It's just, you know, it's just more simple. So rather than having clutches and steels or bands and brakes and a valve body and all that type of stuff, you really just have one motor, another motor, and those two motors will either start the engine, generate electricity based on the ICE, or they'll essentially turn this. And if you look, this goes to the differential. And if you look, this is where your axle shaft would go. Your axle shaft and your axle shaft will spline in here. It looks just like a regular diff. It's got an axle seal. Okay, so if you wanted to work on the electric motor part, generally, I actually didn't mean to pull that out, but we'll put it back in. I'm going to, and I could pull the diff out too, so you guys can see. Might as well. This is the diff. Looks normal, right? It's the normal open differential. Cool. Additionally, we can pull this other EG out. And there's quite a few different versions of Transaxle, so they'll have similarities and they'll have some differences. But this one, this one actually might be MG1. Let me see. You can't help me. I just gotta get a little grip. It's all good. Okay. So if you wanted to go after MG2 right here, you'd have to go in and undo these bolts, and you could pull the whole stator part out, and you could pull the whole rotor part out. If you really had the strength, you could actually turn this. Like if you want to do the Thor's hammer test, it's pretty funny, but if you pull this out and you set this on this bench, nobody in here is picking it straight up. Sit down. But if you want to do it, you can for fun, just because, this is a strong magnet. This thing is no joke right here. But you could see how that would rotate, right? You could almost get it to move. You just have to really wrestle it out of there. This is the only negative. You got to wrestle it back in, okay? And this thing will have its own, you guys remember that position sensor, what it was called? Remember that? Speed and position is called like not a revolver, but a resolver. You can see a bit of the resolver right there, and it comes through right here. So there's your other resolver sensor. Here's your connections for the 3 phases, which is on the lecture tomorrow. And then we did have the access plate, and we also have, remember, because this is heavy electronics, there is a difference you must know. You see this plate that we pulled off right here? Sorry, bolts. Does this look interesting to you?
Yes.
What kind of hose does that look like?
Coolant.
Exactly. This runs actual coolant to the inverter. It's inverter coolant, I should say, to cool the transaxle motor. And you'll notice it's run right here to MG2 area. MG2 is going to be the big heat maker. So this transaxle can leak ATF. It's CVT ATF, and it can also leak coolant. For the most part, these are pretty bulletproof, actually. They can have some electric failures, in which case you do the test we did out there. You would check for insulation failure, and you could check for excessive resistance in the windings through those Megger tester and the milliohm tester. But then other than that, there's some bearings. If you keep oil in this, these bearings aren't going to go bad. If it, however, leaks at the case, like you see all this orange anaerobic sealer type of RTV, if it leaks at this case and it loses its fluid and then those bearings overheat, yeah, you're gonna kill it. Technically, you could probably go in and rebuild one of these, but it is hard to find parts. Compare this to a front-wheel drive current model 8-speed. This is like stupid simple to me. I'm not in love with all the hybrid models, but like the technology is great to me. You're gonna get amazing gas mileage. You don't have to have any charging anxiety, and actually the Transaxle is pretty simple, so a lot of people will say that hybrid's too complex. Well, the Transaxle is not. What clutches are you going to burn up? You can burn up really anything in here. Okay, so that's your overview. And the other thing that's worth noting, when we talk about that ICE, remember your engine's going to turn right here. And you can see how this is going to turn your planetary gear set. One thing I don't have that I wish that I did was a clutch disc. Basically, this has a clutch disc that gets sandwiched between the flywheel, which is kind of a flex plate, but kind of a flywheel, and this input shaft. That's how this gets turned. There's no torque converter. We don't need a torque converter. If we have the engine come to a stop, we can just let this freewheel. It's no big deal. In fact, actually, now that I'm looking at this one, this is actually MG1. This is MG1 over here because it's on the motor side, the engine side. This is MG2. It was a little tough for me to tell on there, but now that I'm looking at it, it makes more sense because this is going to go straight to the differential right here. So, MG1 and 2, the descriptions were correct, but the actual locations, this is definitely an older Prius Transaxle. I had backwards, so MG2 here. You guys can pull this out too if you want. Oh yeah, that'd be fun. Go ahead and go for it. Okay, good. Pause it, Ernie.
It's really